myself and England. I want to know about you as Ukrainians. We were just talking in the corridor about cultural differences. How I don't know about Ukrainian traditions, Ukrainian holidays, those kind of things. As you won't know anything about the way English people celebrate, what they celebrate, how and why. So I want to know from all of you, what's your favourite things about Ukraine? And that can be books, music, movies, food, beer, vodka, whatever. If you're talking, you can have two things, one thing and one place to go and visit, and that for you is what you would say to a foreigner visiting Ukraine. Tell me about your beautiful country.
Slavskoye. Have you been there?
No.
It's very beautiful. It's for leisure. It's for sightseeing with family, with kids. Carpathian Mountains.
Carpathian Mountains.
Yeah.
Okay, that's on my list. And what about something typically Ukrainian, food or music or?
Maybe Lviv.
Yeah, somewhere else to go and be a tourist.
Yes, there is touristic place.
It's one of the historical cities.
Yeah. Beautiful, interesting, lots to see and do. Good for foreigners. What's your favourite? Do you like traditional Ukrainian food?
Yes.
I love that. The fact here people still, it's kind of, in England we don't really have traditional old-fashioned English food much anymore. But here I know, I can get Ukrainian food in bars and restaurants and cafes. Although whenever I go out with my friends it's always, oh, let's go for sushi or a pizza. I want proper food, not that rubbish, not that foreign rubbish, that's just some good Ukrainian food. What are your favourite Ukrainian dishes then? What should I try if I haven't done already?
Have you been to Poltava? And have you eaten galushki in Poltava?
In Poltava. I've been through Poltava on the train. It looks quite interesting.
There are a lot of sightseeing in Poltava or near Poltava, kind of whole places.
I know Gogol was bald now, wasn't he? And there was a big battle there with the Swedes, wasn't there? In whenever it was, I can't remember. A long time ago. I know
It's
that.
for gastronomic tourism.
But what food would I eat in Poltava then? Is there a speciality?
Yes, halushki.
Halushki, what's that? Halushki. What is it?
There's varenik without
meat.
inside.
Yes.
But with smetana.
Onion.
Yeah, kind of.
What would you recommend then?
I recommend you to try obrach or banash. Traditional in West Ukraine, Zakarpattia or Carpattia. It is a very special fat food, but it is very delicious. It is have different from borscht. It's more meat,
Right.
and more.
7 kinds of meat in Banish. 7 kinds.
Yes.
7?
Seven.
But like Solyanka has lots of different kinds.
No,
It's not like Banosh is better, is it?
Yes.
Okay. I like the sound of it's got meat. I don't like the sound of vareniki with nothing in the middle. And smetana on top. I had them a couple of times, pelmeni and vareniki with, so it's basically, it's pasta. It's like Italian ravioli or something. But then you put potato inside of it. There's the only culture in the world that would take something heavy, starch, and put, well, it needs more starch, and then we'll put smetana on top, of course, because it's Ukraine. It's just, you eat one and you walk around feeling like there's a lead weight in your stomach. So.
You like our bread?
Yeah, I love it. I do. Yeah, I like the dark bread. Yeah, we've got a very good bakery near where we are, and I buy fresh bread from there every day. And they make 3 or 4 different kinds, and so I do like Ukrainian bread. It's different. English bread is very good too, but different. It's baked in a different way. It has a different texture to it. English people eat lots of bread. English people eat lots of bread from the supermarket, that cheap white sliced bread. It makes really nice toast, but apart from that it doesn't taste of anything. It's okay for sandwiches if you want something thin, but it hasn't really got much flavour, so I love the bread here. I love the vegetables and fruit, I love the markets, the fact that you can still go to the market and buy fresh fruit, you don't have to go to the supermarket. I love the fact that everything here is still seasonal. You go to the market and it's what they've picked that morning or the day before, depending on what it is. But it's, you know, in England, in the supermarkets, there's food flown in from all over the world and it's been frozen or chilled, and you can get strawberries in January, and you know what I mean, that kind of all the year round, the things. But they've got no flavour because they're grown almost in factories. I like the freshness of things here, they've got more flavour.
And you like castles, as we heard about. So guys, let's advise. We have a lot of castles, big ancient castles here in Ukraine. You should visit them. Like Horton Castle. Кам'янець-Подольський.
Yeah, where's that? Right. So there's nothing near Kharkiv then. When Jane's old, and my daughter's only 5 months old at the moment, so we can't really go very far at all at the moment, but in a couple of years when she's old, I certainly want to travel. I've always wanted to go to Lviv, I want to go to Odessa as well, just because it's a historical name. I've never seen the Black Sea, I'd like to do that. I'd like to go to Poltava, because of the Gogol connection. I read Dead Souls last year, and was quite fascinated by the book and by him. I went in Kiev, I went to Bulgakov's house in Kiev, which is a museum now, so I went and had a look around that. So what else is typical traditional Ukrainian that I should do or try? Or
did you taste Submarine? It's like a type of homemade food.
Yes. Yes.
What can you say about this experience?
I'll stick to beer. I don't drink spirits much, and I had one very bad night here with a friend on vodka. It was Polish vodka as it happened, because friends had bought a bottle for me from Poland, but I've never sat and drunk a bottle of vodka like that, the Ukrainian way, you know, plates of cucumbers and some, I don't know what else, some little bits of bread and meat and orange juice, and then fill the glass and drink it, and fill the glass and drink it. It's an insane way to drink alcohol, isn't it? So it's not a sensible way to have an evening. And then we went out to sing karaoke. Of course you do. Half a bottle of vodka, you have to go and sing karaoke. And have more to drink, of course. I don't sing well at the best of times, so singing after half a bottle of Russian vodka, when I just don't drink spirits. With beer, I've drunk beer all of my life. I know where I am. A pint of beer, the first couple of sips, you get an idea of how strong it is, because they vary a little bit. But you kind of got, it's like the fuel gauge in your car. You know, as I'm drinking it, I can feel how drunk I am. With vodka, it's like, I'm sober, I'm sober, I'm sober, I'm sober, I can't walk. It just goes like that for me anyway. Maybe it's a cultural thing. Maybe I'm just not had enough experience of drinking Ukrainian vodka, or what's it,
Самогон.
I tried it. We went to my wife's family, some of them live in a village outside of Kharkiv, and we went on the day when you visit graves and put sweets on them for the children. I can't even remember what day it was now. It's the day when you go and visit your dead relatives. It's kind of weird. We don't do that in England, so it was kind of a bit strange. Well, it was very strange, I think that's perfectly honest about it. Taking the children to a graveyard and then putting sweets on, I suppose in some ways it's quite nice, but it felt just odd to me. I wasn't expecting that. I didn't really know what was going to happen. But we went to a house in a village, which was my first experience of rural Ukrainian. I don't know, it's not a farm. They have a big field and they grow their own vegetables, and they used to have some goats, so it's kind of a small farm. But it was for me, it was very primitive to see people living like that. They were nice, it was friendly, it was a nice day. We had a huge table out in the courtyard, and I don't know, 20 or 30 people from the family, lots of kids running around throwing things, and loads of food, and homemade vodka in Coke bottles. So I tried it out of politeness for a toast, but I steer clear of that stuff now.
John, what can you say about English films? As example, I like Black Comedian of Guy Ritchie,
Yeah.
and I very like this British accent in films and their jokes.
Yeah.
So what you can say?
The Guy Ritchie films, they're very London, you know, and they're very specific, and all of the actors, a lot of them are London born and bred, so they speak with that kind of Cockney accent. English films vary, like in any country, I guess. Are any of you Harry Potter fans who read the books or seen the movies? Or yeah, I mean the movies are really interesting to me because they're mostly filmed. Some of it's abroad, but most of it's done in various places in England. And when they're on the train going to school, that train is near where I was born and brought up. I've been on that train many times before it was the Hogwarts Express, but that steam train that runs through the countryside. I went to Hogwarts. Well, I went to a boarding school. We didn't have magic and we didn't play Quidditch, but I lived at the school in dormitory rooms with all of my friends. So the Harry Potter books and the movies kind of reminded me a little bit of my childhood because there was a lot different, of course, with those similarities. In England, we make lots of what we call historical dramas. English people like, you know, Jane Austen books turned into movies with people girls in long dresses and men in suits and frilly shirts, and Mr. Darcy and Colin Firth and people like that. So that a lot of England, and maybe it's the same in every country, we see ourselves very differently to how we really are, and nostalgia is very important to English people. Looking back, things were better in the past, weren't they? Well, of course they weren't. And the movies and the books and TV series are not how it really was. A few people lived like those people in big country houses. But whenever there's a TV show on in England, I'm trying to think, there's one very successful one that's been running for 4 or 5 years now. A big country house and a rich family, and it's all about them and their servants. And it's incredibly popular. But it's almost like a cartoon. It's not how England really is or was. But people get nostalgic and they watch things like that and think, oh, wasn't it better in the old days? Why can't we live like that now? But it makes quite a lot of money. There are always films being made in most parts of England. Lots of big budget movies. You know, Saving Private Ryan, you've seen that. A few years ago now, but that was filmed mostly in Ireland. It brings a lot of money. It's important economically as well as culturally. But I think, like most places in Western Europe, we've been almost colonised by American culture. Movies, you know, Hollywood rules everywhere, doesn't it? You get it here, don't you? All of the films. If you go to the cinema and you look down the list of 20 movies, there's probably 15 are American. Hollywood movies translated. Big budget action movies or comedies translated into Russian and Ukrainian. It's the same in England now.
Did you like Ukrainian movies?
I've only seen one. I saw just one. I saw a comedy, a Ukrainian comedy. It was very good actually. I couldn't understand an awful lot, but it was a funny enough comedy that just from the action on the screen I could understand a few sort of nudges. My wife gets really annoyed in the cinema. Popcorn goes everywhere. What happened? Who's that? You know, there's sometimes in a movie there's a plot twist or something which is explained by dialogue. And I'm just suddenly, no, wait, that person and that person, I have no idea why they're doing that now, so I have to, okay, thank you.
Maybe you saw the traditional film which ran after this decade. It's Google.
No.
It is nearly Christmas. This film always show at the Ukrainian TV.
Right.
And you must see that film.
I've seen the Russian one. I can't remember what it's called now.
It's,
Twist of Fate,
Russian.
where you show it at New Year, don't you? The guy, he gets drunk at a party and ends up in St. Petersburg instead of Moscow, gets on the plane and goes to what he thinks is his apartment. you know the one I'm talking
Как он
about?
называется? Ирония судьбы. Ирония судьбы.
I've seen that, and a
Yes.
couple of something about what's it called? Pigeons and love, also doves and love and pigeons, or love and doves, or something.
А,
Or life.
любовь и голуби.
So I deliberately, this is my attempt to, but as I was saying out in the corridor, these are things I will never fully understand. These are things that are part of your DNA that you probably watch for the first time with your Russian with a small R. I'm not talking about Russia the country. You have a Russian with a sign. That's not an insult to Ukrainians, but there's a lot of shared history, language, culture, isn't there, with Russia, whether you like it or not. So I'm not making any political point when I say Russian. I choose to live in Ukraine, and I'm happy that it is still Ukraine. Okay. But you watch these movies or listen to these songs, probably for the first time with your parents when you were kids, and you were getting ready for the party on New Year's Eve, and it was on the TV while you were cutting up vegetables for the olivia salad or whatever you were doing, and it's on in the background because it's on every year, isn't it? And it's on. You probably never sat down and watched it from end to end because you're always getting up to go to the fridge to get something else, or washing the bowl, or whatever you need. There are English movies and English songs and English traditions that I've absorbed in that same way, and I'll never have. I'm too old to learn all of these things. They will always be alien to me. But I love that. I love that feeling here of being a foreigner. I love the excitement of things being new and different every day. Going to the supermarket, getting on a tram, going shopping, any kind of shopping, going to a new cafe or bar or restaurant. If I go to a new place, there's always a little thrill inside of me because I don't know what it's like. I don't know if they're going to speak English. I don't know if they're going to have an English menu. Not everywhere does. A lot of places do. Now, it's safe because everybody here so far that I've met has been incredibly friendly and helpful. But there's a little buzz that I get. Anything I do for the first time that I would never get in England. I could walk in to a pub or a shop in any town, in any part of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, and know, roughly speaking, what it was going to be like. And know that I would have no problem ordering something that I wanted. I do sometimes here still get something I didn't want or didn't expect. Not often now. This is how one learns foreign languages when one's living in a foreign country. Restaurant menus, bar menus, because I need something to eat, so I can just about spell out the names of things if it's written in Russian and Ukrainian. So I don't necessarily need an English menu. But there's that excitement. There's that sense of being like an alien in somebody else's culture. And I love it, and I absorb it all. I ask my wife lots of questions about her life and traditions and about school. Some things to me seem completely bizarre. Putting plastic bags on my shoes when I go to the school. Now, I really don't understand that.
It's about dust here.
Right.
And the type of soil that we have. It's not stony. It's very dirty here, so...
Now, I've got big feet.
Yeah.
And when I wear these, when I've got my winter boots on, I got mine, they're size 48. And you try and find a plastic bag that'll go on my size 48.
I can imagine.
You have this, there's obviously a tribe of old women who are like caretakers or something. Sorry, I'm rude sometimes, you'll have to excuse me.
No, it's very funny, very nice.
And they're at the school, and they sit at the desk. They don't seem to do anything apart from sit at the desk. They're always kind of really drably dressed. I don't think I could describe what they look like apart from grey is the word. They're probably not, but they somehow look grey. And they sit there and they're Ukrainian, so they don't smile. And if it's muddy or wet outside, then I'm sorry, what? Point at the rubbish bin filled with little blue plastic thingies to go. The hospital was the same when Ali was pregnant, when we were going to the hospital. And when we were having the baby delivered, it was exactly the same there. These women, different women, but the same, they come from the same factory. They stand there and they just shout at you. It's not, hi dear, how are you? I'm there. My wife's having a baby. So?
So what?
Really? It was like, I'd left her to go and get some things from home, came back. It was the day before Jane was born. I came back to the hospital in the evening. It wasn't late. They didn't want to let me in. We had a private room. We paid for a private room. It's very cheap by English standards. And this woman was like, show me your name, show me your passport. And I had this little certificate that shows I'd had the test for TB.
X-ray, yeah.
Mm-hmm. It's like there's nobody else in the hospital. My wife was the only person on that floor. Literally, there wasn't another patient. So what do you know? They'd seen me 3 or 4 times going in and out over the last 2 days, but it's their job to sit there and be rude to people. Yeah. The museum, that's why I hated the museum. That's full. There's hundreds of them.
They are the most important people of any establishment, by the way, right?
We call it babki.
We call them babka.
Not all women, but babki.
Right.
Great. True.
The first time I went to the only time I went to the Historical Museum, I'd seen it. It was probably my second visit to Kharkiv, and it's this beautiful building in the sky. I love the fact that it's this old building inside a plastic box. I think that's amazing. No, I really think that's a beautiful way of doing something. Never seen anything like that before. So I'll go and look. I'm interested in history, so I thought I'd go and look around the museum. I had nothing to do in the daytime. Okay, went to the front. There isn't a door. It's a plastic box.
Yeah.
And there isn't a door. Okay, so you have to walk all the way around to the back.
Yes.
And there's a small wooden door, which is closed, which doesn't have a sign on it. And that's it. And it happened that as I was walking around looking for the way in, a security guard came outside to have a cigarette, and he was like, oh, I'm in here. Okay. It's dark, it's dirty, there was bits of rubbish all over this kind of corridor that you walk at the back of the museum, up some stairs to the ticket office, where there's a babki, of course. Now, I didn't speak a word of Russian. I think this must have been my second trip to Kharkiv. So, okay, there's a notice board with the prices, and it wasn't, I think it was 7 hryvnia or something. So I want a ticket, and it was, which room? I don't know what you mean. There's like 10 rooms or something, and you have to buy a different ticket for each room. I said, I want to see the museum, you know, that's, it's not that big. No, which, so, okay. So I ended up with this string of paper, like 2 tickets for each room. 7 rooms, I think it was. 2 tickets, it didn't cost very much, so I didn't mind the money, that wasn't the point. So. Okay, I've got my fist full of tickets, and I went to, she kind of pointed me, go that way, through the first door into the first room, which was dark. I mean, literally no lights on. So I couldn't see very much. And then from nowhere, the voice comes, and the light came on, and of course there's a stool in the corner by the door with another babki. Might have been the same one. She may have been very quick and run around and sat down while I wasn't looking. And I was like, ticket! So I
choose any.
Have them all. Oh, okay, and then she obviously was happy, tore that off, and so I'd seen something, a picture on the wall or something, I don't remember. I started to, no! Go that way. There's nobody else in the whole museum. I had to walk around in the right order, all of the cabinets, and until I got to what I actually wanted to look at. There was nothing that I wanted to see anyway. That was repeated in every single room. There was a babki who took a ticket. I was the only visitor. I'm not surprised. Turned the light on for me, made me walk around in a certain order, one of them on the top floor was actually friendly and came over and pointed something out to me, and I said, I don't speak Russian, and she still explained to me, which is kind of nice actually, I like that. Somebody knows you don't understand a word that they're saying, but they're still enthusiastic enough to try and tell you about something.
Yes, usually loudly.
So I was just, okay, but it was something about, it was a cart for Cossacks or something, I don't know. It was quite interesting, I guess. So that happened in all of the rooms. The barbecue took the tickets, and I went round to it. Everyone's got a woman sitting there who presumably sits there all day just collecting tickets from crazy foreigners. And there aren't many of those. I can't imagine it's very busy, but that to me, that could never happen in England or America or Western Europe. It's uniquely, that's a cultural thing for you. You're obviously you're all laughing because you recognise that I'm exaggerating, of course, but that happens at the school, happens at the hospital. Put plastic bags on my feet when I walk in. Weird.
Oh yeah. But
so,
changes are coming, I hope.
Yeah.
Yes. With your help.
With the help of this government initiative, Ukraine, have you seen the adverts on television? Ukraine will speak English. The government's putting money into giving businesses and government departments money to train people who work for them to speak better English. That's the idea.
Last year was year of English. Last year was in our country year of English.
Was it?
Yes.
Okay.
Did anybody notice that? Any changes? No. It's like a black hole, black hole for money, really. So, I'm not sure.
No, this year is the year of English for you all. Yes. So what else about Ukraine should I do? What's the one thing that really annoys you about your country? What's the one thing you'd change if you could?
Good question. Don't be shy.
You know what?
Our political
System.
Uh-huh.
Political system.
Yeah.
Yeah.
we need to change. We really need to change. The
more young guys.
They are. I don't know why we choose these people, and in our political, it's really annoying thing.
Yeah.
Our Ukraine.
It's our citizens make problems in
Mind.
us, yes, because we choose this person.
Right.
I'm not sure.
We're not sure.
These people.
You should,
Yeah.
these people.
we should change our mentality in general because we love
Because many
only
of
complain.
podcasts
Yeah. Start with yourself. Yeah?
I agree. But in general, Ukraine is the best country.
Wow, Dima, let's clap for our hands. Dima.
I choose to live here, so I'm not arguing with you. Every country is the best country in the world for different reasons. I chose to leave England and come, and I don't imagine ever going back to England. I imagine I'm going to die here. Hopefully not soon, but that's kind of the plan. I want to see my daughter married. I want to see my beautiful young wife become a babushka. I keep teasing her about that all the time. So I'll be here for, I hope, the rest of my life, unless something changes seriously. So, I am trying to make this my home. So I want it to be better. Are you optimistic?
Yes.
As people and as Ukrainians, are you optimistic for yourselves and for your country?
Because we are living here, so that's why we are.
We have to be. We have to be, right?
We have no
Yes,
choice.
no
We
choice.
must be optimistic.
Yes, you're right.
That's important. I think being positive is really important. That's where the changes come from. You have to want it to be better. And then, as I said earlier, you demand it to be better, and that's everything. It's not about political parties or colours of flags or anything like that. It's about the things that are bigger than that. It's about the small, petty corruption that there is here. Not just the people stealing billions and billions of dollars, but the people stealing, charging 20 hryvnia for you to go and see the doctor when you shouldn't have to pay anything, or paying at the school for plastic bags to put on my feet, or whatever. That low level, as well as, yes, there are criminals and oligarchs who have creamed off billions at the top, but you have to say no to that's what you can change.
Yeah.
Don't do it yourselves. That's the first thing. Never ever ask for a bribe for doing what you're supposed to be doing anyway. And then start refusing to pay. And I know it's difficult, it's hard to change it, but that's the only way it will change. And if it changes at the bottom, it'll change at the top. It never happens in England. I'm not saying there aren't corrupt people, I'm not saying there aren't oligarchs, I'm not saying there aren't people who steal money that doesn't belong to them, who embezzle, who have fraudulent businesses. Of course all of that happens. But for an ordinary citizen, in all of my life, I've never paid a bribe to anybody. I've never taken a bribe. I worked in the English courts for 26 years.
Bribe, взятка. Все знают.
I never saw or heard of anybody taking or paying money so that their case would win. That doesn't mean it doesn't happen. I'm not, England's not some kind of, they're human beings, so I'm sure there are some very rich people. And of course, if you're very rich, you can buy the best lawyer who argues in court for your case, but you can't buy a judge. You can't take money to a judge and say, this is my case, here's $10,000, make sure I win. That doesn't happen.
The doctors.
No, that medicine.
Medicine.
All system of
Where you buy was free.
We have free doctors, free dentists, free hospitals. You can pay. There are private ones as well, like here. So if you have money, you can pay. So if you need an operation, you can pay, and then you will have your operation more quickly. It probably won't be better though, and you'll probably be staying in the same room that somebody who didn't pay is in. You would just get it more quickly. It's under a lot of pressure at the moment. There's a lot of people. England has an aging population, so more and more people need doctors and hospitals. So it's starting to be not as efficient as it was when I was a kid. But it's still miraculous, I would say. My father was very ill in the last 3 years of his life. He had cancer, he had several heart attacks. Basically his whole body was shutting down slowly. He got the most incredibly good and caring service from doctors and the hospital, and from the nurses who come round to the house. He was on, I'm not sure how many, 20 or so different drugs every day for his various things. They were all free. He didn't have to pay for any of the medicine he took every day. I have a heart attack every time we go into the apteka and buy tablets, even something quite simple. I can understand it if it's something unusual, but when we're just buying quite ordinary things, they're really expensive, aren't they? By Ukrainian standards. I mean, it must.
Yes.
In England, as a reasonably healthy, reasonably young working man, any drug, whatever I needed from the doctors or hospitals, I would have to pay for it. The treatment in the doctors or the hospital is free. If I need drugs from the apteka, I have to pay. About 200 hryvnia. It's a flat. It doesn't matter what you have. So sometimes that's a bargain. Sometimes it's not such a bargain. But it's a very simple system. The couple of times when I've been seriously ill, I got very bad tonsillitis 5 or 6 years ago. I don't know what the Russian word is. In my throat, there's two. It came overnight, more or less, as these things do, and I was seriously not well. I wasn't going to die from it, but it was very uncomfortable. I lived on my own at the time, so everything was difficult. When you live on your own and you get ill, you still have to shop, you still have to cook, you still have to do all of the ordinary things. So I went to the doctors without making an appointment, and I could just walk in and say to the receptionist, I'm sorry, I'm very ill, I need to see a doctor now. And I saw a doctor within 10 minutes, without having to pay any money to anybody. She had a look, decided I was ill enough. I was in hospital, I think 2 days later for the operation, without it costing me a penny. So English people moan all the time about our hospitals and our doctors and our health service, but it's far, far better than most countries in the world.